Well, I'll
Cool.
just kind of start this off and people can join us. But do you mind? I mean, my idea here is that this could be part of the Teacher Gamer podcast. That's how I'm feeling. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
Then I'm just going to say, welcome to the Teacher Gamer podcast. We have Vanek with us, and we're kicking off the annual Teacher Gamer Meetup. And I have done it at 2 times during today. This will be the first one. And then in about 8 hours, I think I'm doing another one that's mostly like Asia, Africa, Europe, Australasia, where actually it looked like more people did actually sign up. So there you go. I was a little bit worried about the time change because I think daylight savings flips for you guys, and I literally was like trying to figure out, is this gonna flip on me because I'm already going to be in Asia. So I'm in Bali right now. I'm in Indonesia. I've been with my family here about 8 years. We came over here to I came over here to work at the Green School and to change our family's living situation so we could try something different. We were living in Canada and we were living in Montreal. And actually, you have the Golden Gate Bridge behind you. For our listeners, Aaron, I actually moved from the Bay Area in 2000 to live in Montreal. And
did you like Montreal better? Is Montreal better?
Is Montreal
worse
better?
Or same?
Oh, it's
different.
Definitely different. It's a whole different, especially because of the climate. That's a major factor. So it puts you into heavy seasons, and it puts you into a winter submarine that lasts for about 5 months, where you really go down deep, and you can't get away from it. Where at least if you're living in the Bay Area, you could go south for heat and you can go north for more seasonal action. There's kind of no getting away from it when you're in Montreal. But at the same time, people really love to enjoy their spring and summer in a different way than in California, where there seems to be about 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there's fire season, 2 weeks of rain, mud season, and summer. Those are at least the Southern California seasons.
There you go. And yeah. So let's just jump right into it. And the idea for me is to do a check-in. So anybody who does join us, I'll have them do the same. If you wouldn't mind, Aaron, just to give us a little bit about the background. And by the way, I haven't met you, so that's nice to meet you. And yeah, just if you could give us your full name and two words to say how you feel right now, without, you don't have to describe why, just like how you're feeling, and a piece of gratitude from your childhood would be lovely. And then lastly, a character who sticks out to you, one of your favorite story characters, and 3 inner qualities that you admire about them. That would be a nice way to kind of kick off a little bit.
Okay.
About you.
Okay, there's a quiz coming up. Make sure I get these right. Was there something before 2 words?
Yeah, I put it in.
Feeling.
I put it in the chat if that helps.
I did not get this.
I have to re-chat it. That sucks. Okay. Damn it.
Yeah. Anyway, when people sign in, I'm not gonna see it.
Right. Okay. No. I was gonna say
whiteboard it. You can put it on a whiteboard.
I was gonna do that.
Or just put the chat.
Yeah. No, the idea was your full name. I just threw it back up there.
Oh, okay. All right. So my name is Aaron Vanek. Hi. How am I feeling right now? Getting slightly hungry and placid. That's all good. Not your body state. Okay, emotional state.
There you go.
All right, emotional state.
Placid's pretty good.
Placid will stay, and and abiding, because the dude abides. So I am placidly abiding.
Love it. All right.
All right. Number 3, something you're grateful from your childhood. Depending on how I want to say something that happened when I was younger, but it wasn't childhood unless you consider college being childhood.
We'll go for it. If it
Like,
comes
if
to
I
your
have to go-
mind, if it comes to your mind, that's the
So-
best.
Yeah. So I was going to mention this just because it came up. So, and it'll probably be relevant to any kind of discussion that we generate. When I was in college, UCLA, I was part of the science fiction club at UCLA, Enigma. Its name was Enigma Science Fiction Fantasy Fan Club, Social Club. And we did LARPs, and a lot of them. And our system of LARPs were one-shots. They weren't campaigns. And we had a lot of different game masters, designers running them. Our pattern was basically like Saturday night, 6 to midnight-ish. But it was any genre. Mechanics were different. And I didn't realize, I mean, I did like 10 years ago, but it came up again because I was talking to my wife about LARPing. How grateful I am that the system we got was not a single system. It was different systems every time. So I was able to kind of get a whole bunch of different ways of doing LARPs, content, genre, mechanics, all these different ways of doing it, which impressed upon me the possibilities of LARP. And I wasn't locked into one system where I'm playing the same rule set over and over again. And I personally just am the renewed gratefulness that I had that, and there was no reason we did it, but just like, you run it now you run it. I think had a very good outcome and impression upon me and my future gaming and LARPing and everything like that. Okay, number 4. Name one of your favorite characters from a story and 3 inner qualities you admire in them. Favorite characters in a story. And epic fiction. I'm gonna go probably with a default because I have the action figure sitting here. It's Spider Jerusalem from the Transmetropolitan comic book series by Warren Ellis and Derek Robertson. Nice. I think that's right. Which is basically Spider Jerusalem in the comic book series Transmetropolitan is a takeoff of Hunter S. Thompson. He's a real character that I'm fond of. I like Hunter Thompson's writing. And what I admire about Spider Jerusalem in the comic book series is basically dedication to the truth to power. I support that, taking on, the president in this case, that he has a desire to get the voice, giving a voice to a lot of people who are voiceless. So I admire that. And his way of channeling anger, Spider's way of channeling anger. There's a lot to be angry about, and I think he's able to channel it in good ways. And his use of swearing, his literary form. So I really enjoyed. I haven't read him in a while, but I really, really enjoyed the Transmetropolitan series when I read it. It was after it came out, but
nice.
But yeah. So
I actually want to dig a little deeper because it's just the two of us here, and there's so we could go. This could be a huge conversation right here, but I'd love to hear, especially for those who have never heard of or don't know of or haven't explored Spider Jerusalem. When you say he has this way of channeling anger, what is that?
So in the comic book series, Spider Jerusalem plays a reporter in kind of a cyberpunk. So if you think of like a cyberpunk genre, he's a reporter. So very similar to Max Headroom. Those of you are familiar with the Max Headroom TV series, but he's a journalist a written journalist rather than a video journalist, as Max Headroom was. And there's a lot of abuses that still yet continue in that day and age. So there's a number of story arcs. It's a continuous story, comic book series. I think it went 75 issues. Can't remember. It did end, but I'm going to say like 75, might be a little less. But there's a lot of things that would kind of upset Spider Jerusalem, that he kind of looked at his pen, quote unquote, he's typing on a keyboard, but his pen is as a weapon, and words as weapons, although there is violence in it and he would punch stuff. But the idea is how to channel words and language in such a way that it motivates people to change things for the better, or removing problems, like either awareness of a problem or possibility of changing problems, or, you know, exposing something that was hidden. So it's an anger, something would bother me and get really angry about it, but rather than necessarily, you know, doing a Weather Underground method of bombing them or assaulting someone, although that happened, or he'd use his bowel disruptor, he would write a story about it. And it was like, you know, how can I use words, the English language in this case, to affect the emotions of people in such a manner that they, you know, together are able to stop something kind of in a peaceful way. How you can shame, you know, authorities into doing the right thing, or something like that. So it's how can we take this anger instead of internalizing it, but actually how he was able to bring it out. Now he had a column and he had the talent of assembling words in such a fashion that he could do that. So he's able to do that, and a lot of us don't. And so that's why there's a lot of people who get very angry about things in their lives and don't necessarily know of genuinely constructive, helpful ways of using, you know, the talents they do have to make things better for them and for society. So I admire that. I admire how he did it. And he did it with swearing. So, you know, it was funny.
Nice. What other there was an artist and a writer who made that series, and what other
Warren,
go ahead. Warren Ellis,
Ellis, and Derek, I believe it's Robertson, and Derek was Darrick. It was kind of a weird Derek spelling, and I want to say I believe it's Robertson, and if I'm wrong, sorry, listeners, I'm sure you're correcting me right now. Interestingly enough, Derek Robertson, the artist, went to high school near my high school, not at my high school, but like one that was a couple miles away. And he started a comic book, his own, that the local comic book shop that I went to published. It was called Space Beaver. And so Space Beaver, it was kind of black and white indie comic, right in the same Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle wave of things. And so he's drawn it, Space Beaver, and this comic book guy, is a comic shop I always went to get my comics. He was always pushing, buy Space Beaver, buy Space Beaver. And like, it had good art. It was cool art. But ultimately, like I was into Transmetropolitan and I loved the art. And then I kind of looked up the artist. I'm like, oh my God, this was Space Beaver artist. So I never met him, but I thought it's so funny. This little indie comic that my local comic book guy helped this artist that I totally love working on this series that I love. Like, was that, I just love that connection, you know, from childhood.
I love it.
Oh my God, this was Space Beaver guy, the Space Beaver artist.
And so did the use of swearing in the Spider Jerusalem comic, is that kind of the same that all characters coming from what, Warren Ellis and Derek Robertson, or who? I don't know if it was always.
Yeah, it's team, adult.
Okay.
Sorry, they're adult, mature reader comics. It was under the Vertigo imprint of DC Comics, Transmetropolitan.
So you just like the authenticity of the language.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's the thematic things and stuff like that because it follows to what Hunter Thompson, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, so it was following Hunter Thompson's sort of thing and dealing with, you know, serious stuff. It wasn't superheroes, although there was like magical, quote unquote, like technology level, because it's, hundreds of years in the future sort of thing. And it was one where, hey, we have all these real cool things, but we still have problems. We still have the same problems. Humans are still humans, and someone's trying to screw over someone else for whatever selfish purposes, and
Right.
what do you do in that? So it was realistic. And a lot of the stuff was really, I think, came out maybe in the 90s.
Okay.
And Warren Ellis, the writer, seemed really prescient in a lot of things that I'm just like, whoa, like this is happening. So like 3D printers, being able to print all this stuff. So in Transmetropolitan, they had this thing called a maker, where it's just like a box that's in everyone's home, and you have to feed it like this block of material, and it will just make things for you. Clothes, it'll just make something. Like he says, and he'll talk to it. It's like, maker, make me, I need clothes, and I need a pair of pants and jacket. And then seconds go by, goes boop, and then he has a pair of clothes. And he'll say, make me, these special camera glasses. So he had like these glasses. It's like one green, one red. They take pictures. So they're like picture taking glasses and he'll record video. And this is like late 80s, early 90s. Like,
that's real. Like, as you described, it's like real cyberpunk, like where you would start to kind of exchange parts of your body for tech that could kind of do stuff for you. Right.
Yeah. So I was just really impressed with a lot of the stuff that sort of was coming out, in, I think it was early 90s, like 90 to 95, that going back now, I'm like, oh yeah. And that's where we are nowadays.
Yeah.
He was talking about a presidential election. So there's a whole story arc dealing with the president of America. And
nice.
And now, we are where we are. And so I'm like, oh, interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I always love that question. I never know what it's going to bring, and thanks for starting us out there. I'm just going to quickly post. There's a number of people that said they were coming to this meeting, so I'm just jumping on to the Facebook to say hello and let everybody know that we're live. But
there's like 3-4 other people.
Yeah, 3 or 4 other people, and then I'm just going to go back to the group and just say on a basic post, hello.
Happening now. Yeah, 5 people going. Well, this is the time you posted, 5:30. We haven't hit our time yet. So this is still.
It's not 5:30?
It is 5. Well, it was.
That's what I'm saying.
Your time was all correct here. Your time was all correct here.
Okay, right. Yeah, I'm just doing a quick post. And anyway, yeah, I mean, you've confirmed that I got it right, and also that you got the right link, and that you got the right. Did you have to put a password in, or didn't even?
No, I didn't. I did not have to put a password in.
That's such a weird thing. I noticed that. It's like I put password there, and then people say, yeah, I never have to put the password. I'm like, well, then why are they asking me to? Maybe it's because I change it from the original kind of numeric one they give me. But,
well, it's in the link. In other words, if you click on the link that you provide, it's in there. Like, let me.
It's totally okay. It's totally okay. You know what? We can just move on. And would you like me to give the same introduction to myself so that you?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, let's do it. So my full name is Zachary Reznichek, and I am feeling disappointed. You can imagine why, in one sense, but I'm also very thankful and really happy that you're here. And this is it for me. whether it's 500 people or one person, I really just enjoy these conversations. And you've already brought me so much in this conversation. And in my childhood, I'm grateful for so many things. My gosh, I think I'll just say for now, I'm really grateful for the patience of so many people, and especially my parents, but just the patience, that people showed me, because I don't think I was, actually, I think I probably am like and have been like any child. We all want to learn and do things and figure things out, and maybe some of us are just less conformist than others, or we want to do it our way, or we're trying to figure it out. And so I really appreciate that patience. So many characters and so many stories that I love. I'm just going to go out on a limb here, because I don't think I've ever used this one, but Matt Cawthon from the Wheel of Time series. Are you familiar with the Wheel of Time?
I haven't read it, but the TV show's coming out, or the movie's coming out, or something.
Yeah, the TV show's coming, which has me really excited. So I'm rereading the series for the third time, actually, and I'm on book 11. So it's a pretty massive session, and book 11 has got a big part with Matt in it. And yeah, whether you know who he is or not, he's a kind of rogue character, let's say. And what I really like about him is he's his qualities I like about him is that he's irreverent. He's got a kind of nobility to himself, or he has, how do you say that? He has a code. He's sticking to some kind of a code. He's not, and yet he takes a lot of chances. He believes that he's stuck in paradox constantly. People's attitude towards him, and he's trying to do the right things, but then he puts his foot in his mouth, or he makes a strange decision, and it's all worked out in his head as to why he's done it. But the way that other people look at him, or why the hell would you do that? And he I guess you could say he doesn't do it the safe way. He does it, he tries to do or take a chance to do something special or different, because he is thinking kind of large scale. And as stories go, that he usually gets in trouble for it, but ultimately it turns out, and then it's all, he always gets it's thankless, right, when it actually comes down to it. And this is classic story writing, and pretty good story writing at that, is that, if he hadn't done it the way he did it, a whole bunch of great things wouldn't have happened. But along the way, it affected a number of people in perhaps a negative way, so that when it comes down to it, no one comes and thanks him for it. And so he's constantly in this position of, man, I went through all this to try to make that happen, and no one really sees that. And anyway, I love that about him. And at the same time, he just stays at being himself. And I think that that's so important. I think individuality, he's flawed. Yeah, I like how he's flawed, and he keeps going. I think there's also the other thing is that he's dedicated to his friends, and he keeps going. He doesn't let things get him down. And yeah, he's like, for that he has a consistency and a persistency. I don't know, is persistency a word, or can we just say persistent?
Persistence, yeah.
I like persistency. That's interesting. So are you, I've heard you use the word literary form a couple times. Are you an English teacher, or that's just a thing, something that you say?
No, I was an English major at UCLA, but no, I teach games and game design.
Okay. And that's, where do you do
close.
that? Right.
So there's a number. So I posted a bit of my bio in the Facebook group.
I could even read
so
it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just did a couple hours ago. So right now I am teaching at a homeschool environment. and I have 2 classes, board and card game design and science through LARPing, live action role playing. So they're learning science and science concepts through some LARPs that I designed. And then the younger kids are making their own board and card games that are going to get printed and printed and give it to them. So I'm making an actual thing that they designed, and they'll get to keep it. I am designing curriculum, or I don't know if I'm going to say curriculum or programs for a LARP summer camp, Guardian Adventures on the East Coast. So I'm working for them, designing some of their program stuff. And then I also, although I'm not working like right now on it, but I'm on a 3-year project working for the Game Academy, which is a 501c3 nonprofit near the Bay Area. They worked with UC Santa Cruz's Social Emotional Technology Lab and got a $1.2 million National Science Foundation grant to make a summer camp that teaches programming and computing and engineering, some STEM subjects to the target demographic is middle grade girls, using a LARP structure. So it's like a 1-week LARP where they pretend they're part of a kind of secret academy that can travel through dimensions. And they use wearable technology. So they're using like microbits or Arduino. It's microbits, but you think like Arduinos, and they put it into fabric and clothing of some way to communicate certain things. And so they're learning programming, and they're learning sewing and fashion and design sort of stuff, all through a camp experience, 1-week camp experience. So it's a 3-year program. The idea at the end of the 3 years is there'll be a camp in a box. We're calling it Camp in a Box that anybody can get and run. And it'll have all the materials in it to run for this camp. So it's pretty cool. I'm super excited. I initiated that. I started that through the LARPing career. I ended up talking to the lab, and we didn't and got them. And I told them at the end, because I was going to get them to help make a for fun LARP. But at the end of this conversation with one of the grad students at the lab, I said, "Oh yeah, and I'm part of the Game Academy, which is a nonprofit in the Bay Area, and they do gaming summer camps, role-playing game summer camps, right? So Dungeon Dragons, after-school enrichment, and summer camps." And I was on the board of the Game Academy at the time, and I said, maybe we could do something. And that was like at the end of this conversation in this meeting. And the grad student was like, "This is awesome. Let's keep talking." And I ended up talking to Professor Ispister, Catherine Ispister. And she's like, "Yeah, this sounds great." So we kept talking, and then like, "Let's do a grant." And so I said, "Let's go big." So I went like really big on this whole concept. The first year we didn't get it, but then she reapplied, made some changes to the grant, and got it from the National Science Foundation. So it was like, whoa. So I left the board of the Game Academy to be an employee, because it's a nonprofit, and I could have stayed on the board, but I wanted to, kind of just be an employee and get paid. So I'm one of the designers on the project. And so either this weekend, like right now, or next weekend or something, they're running a second playtest of the camp in, I should know this. It's not Berkeley. I forgot where it is, but it's up in the Bay Area. I forgot already. So they're doing the second one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So no, I designed it, but they're running it.
That's awesome. I'm so excited for you and for them. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's super cool.
Yeah, so I see those links, and we'll make sure that we put the links down in the podcast so people can check that out. I'm looking here. You've just described. Wow, you described a lot of it in our group. So cool. Nice. I'm thrilled to be meeting you and to hear about this, because of course this is such a amazing new direction to be going, and right at the time that, and you're looks like you're doing a lot of tech stuff, which is interesting, because there's one part which is keeping things maybe more organic, tabletop, outside, building with your hands, and then you have these like wearables, coding, a whole other element. How do you feel about the difference or the blending between tech and more, let's say outside and just old skills, old crafting, You know, where do those things merge for you, or how do you separate them?
Well, in general, when I'm teaching, one of the things I like to do is I don't want to do is compartmentalize subject matter so that the tech and the history and language all go together. And crafting, to me, you know, it's more like topic or story, narrative based, and then all these things, all these subjects in schooling, or at least in education, become part of the narrative. And so the blend on that is that tech can help facilitate the crafting and skills, crafting skills and communication between people, and empathy between people, and understanding of yourself. It can help or hinder it. And I've found a lot of times that when you divorce these things, that's like tech is just tech for tech's sake, or math is math for math's sake, or science is science for science sake. Many times, for a lot of people, they lose interest if it's not attached to emotions. And so one of my sound bites that I frequently say when I use LARPing for education is that when emotional baggage is attached to facts, the retention is better and the understanding is better. And so my job as an educator that I'm trying to do is attach emotional baggage to the things that they learn. So for example, one of the first LARP I ever designed was Star Seekers, and it was for a 6th grade class, and they were on a spaceship, and they would be learning math. And the idea was to try and have the students remember fractions or decimals, whatever they had to learn in their 6th grade math, not because the teacher told them and gave them a test and a quiz, but because they used it to save the ship from whatever crisis, the narrative, the fiction, so that you use the math in a fictional setting and it doesn't become abstract. Some people get into that. Obviously, some people totally just love the numbers and manipulating numbers, but a lot of people don't. And so I feel that, crafting things and making things, stories, even if it's a story, if it's not an actual physical thing, but you're making a story through a character's interactions, help give you a motivation for learning the science or the math or whatever the tech is, if you want to call it that. I think you'll retain it better because you have a reason for doing it. You did this for a reason, not I made it because this was, the homework assignment, something like that.
Sure.
Does that answer your question? I'm hoping that answers your question.
Kind of. I
could try again.
No, it answers it. It answers like something else that's important to me, which is like what's motivating about working with role-playing games in education. But I'm also just wondering about the more specific thing I'm asking is, there's a lot of tech in schools, or there's a push. When I go to an education conference and I go through the hall of stuff and people and programs and toys and whatever, there's one set of booths that's usually for the primary school that's like all these wooden toys and really earthy things and real experiential and smells and tactile. And then when you start moving up into secondary or into middle school, it's like computers, programs, apps, and there's a kind of it sort of disappears, and there's all these people, you got to get this and you got to download that, and it's connected with this program. And what I feel with RPGs, and a lot of reason why kids come to work with me and parents send their kids to me. My workshops are 4 hours, they're generally 4 hours at a time. And it's because we're not on the computer. There's just no computer, right? There's a computer there, and what I actually have, I have a computer hooked up to a larger screen, and it just has a background of pictures that I've taken over the years, and now it's many years of just people playing and doing whatever they're doing, terrain building, LARPing, foam sword battling, tabletopping. And that just is on a slideshow so that they see themselves and they see others and different things. And then if we really have a question and we want to go ask, Miss Google or whatever, or, want to search something up and look at something, it's there, but it literally it's over in another room, or it's like in the same room, but an extension. And otherwise we do everything without, no phones. No, it's kind of tech less. It's an opportunity to really unplug. Right.
Yeah. It's a real, not virtual, is what it sounds like. It's not in front of a screen into a virtual world.
Absolutely not.
As much as
right.
Yeah.
It's go outside. It's, make something, literally like terrain build and make things. I have Mark coming in.
Cool.
Let's get somebody new in here.
I'm gonna have to head out at 6:30.
Okay.
For sure. So
nice. Well,
if it'll continue.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what's going on. Hello, Mark.
Hey there. Sorry I'm late. I was attending a memorial for a dear friend.
Oh,
bless.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us. And we don't have a large group, but it's a nice group. You make it look cozy in all your gear there. You're making like
Colorado.
Okay. And Aaron and Mark, do you know each other?
We do.
Oh, that's great.
Where do we know each other, Mark?
You worked more with Aaron Pernak, Renaissance Adventures.
Oh, okay.
Right? I think you had more communications with Renaissance Adventures. You're in California.
Yeah, I knew I recognized your name. Yeah. Oh, you were doing you guys had the ad in Local Magazine.
Did we?
You did.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, Aaron Piernak. Yeah, you're like outside Denver, right? Is it Arvada or something?
Boulder, Colorado.
Boulder.
And we do
Renaissance Adventures.
The live action role playing adventure quest with kids.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And I don't think we've met, or at least not in virtual.
Yeah. Not officially, other than some emails, cool. I think.
Yeah. All right.
But good to see you. Yeah.
Welcome. So it's just been Aaron and I so far. I actually I felt like we got a kind of mini podcast introduction into what Aaron's doing, and it's I put this together just to get it started. I didn't know if I'd get 30 people or 3 people, or for me it's just it's been always like that, just getting things turning and getting things rolling and see what can happen. And there's obviously groups that are much further along and more organized, and again, this is just me trying, so I really appreciate you guys showing up. Mark,
I really
go for it.
I just want to say I really appreciate the focus of your book, and that you've been working with kids, bringing role playing into a school environment, which is difficult. It's more difficult than I'm doing what can be perceived as recreation with the kids. They're LARPing outside with foam swords and whatnot. But I know all the experiential education effects and outcomes that we're aiming for with our work, but I think it's much harder bringing it into a scholastic setting and trying to tie it in with different educational goals of a school. So and I'm glad you're doing it.
Thank you. Well, thanks so much. And it's been a very natural or organic process, maybe is a better way to say it. I don't know how natural. Well, it's been kind of natural, but it really got inspired by once again, one of those situations where we had a bunch of kids that were not behaving as the school wanted. What do we do with these kids who are kind of not really doing what we want them to do? What are we going to do? And I was one of those kids in school too. So when the director said, what do you anybody want to do something with them. And my hand just shot up like, yeah, I'll do whatever. And then I said, well, what do you want me to do with them? And at that time I was an English teacher and head of mindfulness. This was at Green School, Bali. This was about 7 or 8 years ago. And they said, we don't care. And then like just anything, because they've been at the school for a while. They've done their green things, their sustainability things. They're kind of bored of the things, and they're a little bit punk rock, and they're young teenagers, and they're just acting out. And it's totally usual stuff. It wasn't really extraordinary, and I would say it's quite mild compared to other situations I've been in. Like in inner city schools in Canada, for example. So when it came down to it, I said, what should I do with them? Did they have a program? They said, no, it doesn't matter. Like, you can do anything. And I said, and it just popped in my mind, like, can I teach them how to play Dungeons and Dragons? And they were like, whatever, do it. And then that just became, and I had already had it in my thoughts from the years before, and I'd already been kind of working on teaching people how to play, but that was more just teaching people and adults. And I thought, wow, now I can actually kind of pedagogically go at it in a totally different way. And because I have control as the teacher, I can actually set up long character builds. I can do really deep creative writing and focus on literary form. And it set my mind, and I think that I'd like to inspire that in other teachers who have similar thoughts. It's like it just actually really ignited my mind and motivated me in a beautiful way, because it was like, how do I do this? And wow, I could do this in so many ways. And even more interesting, wow, if I had a co-teacher, and it wouldn't matter what that teacher was doing, in fact, because they have their specialty, and I could even be learning things too. It could be math, it could be it could be Spanish. We could make the languages spoken in the RPGs actually different languages, and I've done a lot of that actually. Here we speak Bahasa Indonesian. I'm in Bali, and so a lot of times I'll make the activation word of a magic item in Bahasa, so that they might be able to figure. So I have two things. It's a riddle, which I can actually put in the other language too, so that they actually get it, and they can't read it, or they can read part of it and be like, oh yeah, what the heck does that say? And so I've done that in multiple languages. So I use, German, Spanish, French, Bahasa, and then some kids speak different languages because they're third culture kids, or they come from different places. And so it becomes kind of decoding that, anyway, so that just all tumbled out, and I've been at it ever since. I mean, that just made me realize, and I think it also harkened back immediately for me to when I was a kid, and that was what kind of got me through the 80s and 90s as a middle schooler and high schooler, was to actually, I was just consumed by it and super motivated. And I was always thinking as a kid, why is it, why don't we do stuff like this in school? Like, this is all so interconnected, and so I'm so interested in this, and it just takes the right person to kind of connect. I feel like connecting both worlds. What is the world that we are going into, that kids are going into? What is the reality? And then how can we use the imagination to kind of bridge that? And I think that kids are very amenable and adaptable to, they'll go for it, or as I did in Green School, before I offered the class, I just talked to kids on the side and said, they might let me teach this Dungeons and Dragons class, but probably not. But if they did, would you be into it? And they were like, I said, because it might have to make it a little bit kind of academic, a little, we might have to do some writing, and, really downplayed it. And they were like, yeah, totally, I'd do that. And so just once you got them into it, they went for it. Anyway, that's a lot about my journey, but Mark,
well,
go for it.
I just have a quick question. So I know you brought in creative writing in your work. Did you did you, in your school, did they integrate role playing with any of the other normal subjects, science, math, et cetera? Or were you bringing it in a little bit here and there? Or was it mostly, hey, we want to engage these kids that are having a difficult time engaging with the school, and you found a way to really do that?
It's a great question. Originally, it was that. Originally, it was like, we need something that gets these behavioral people to do something. And it's a little bit like mindfulness, instead of bringing mindfulness to everybody, it's like, well, let's give it to the people who are, having trouble focusing and whatnot. But it's really something for everybody. A little bit like a drama program. A drama program is great for everybody. A singing program is great for everybody. Art is great for everybody. So for me, it was like, they were targeting behavioral issue, but the reality was it was great for everybody. And by the way, by the next class, and it was all boys the first time, and then the girls totally wanted in. Like once everybody saw what was going on, it was like, oh, I want to do that. And I think I'm not some kind of great, amazing polymath, but I'm overall a kind of polymath, jack of all trades type of person. I've always thought about myself as like building a pyramid slowly, and doing a lot of different things that slowly goes up, where I've seen a lot of my friends and colleagues, they build like, one really straight up structure that's very focused. I've been, and that's, of course, as a kid, it was like, he's never focused, but yeah, that's because I was always in a little bit of everything. So in school, that's how I am as a teacher. I can have sub lessons of, especially things like astronomy or poetry or geology or language or etymology, epistemology, like anything, history. I will go any direction. So I would say I'm kind of like a one-man band in that sense. But then finding other teacher gamers, that's been a big thing for me. Is like, I believe that there's at least 2 or 3 teacher gamers in any giant school, and probably even more now after this COVID thing. I think there's even more teacher gamers, and I think it's about getting those people together to co-teach, especially, but also anybody who's even curious. Like, take your teacher gamer and get somebody else who's curious about gaming and pull them in and start to make these puzzles, make school more into like puzzles and play, so that it isn't just one person. And it talking to teacher gamers, they're such exciting people, because I feel like they are drawing from so many parts of their lives, and they're not just that single subject thing. And then it becomes what we call now like transdisciplinary, right? So to teach something, we can start involving all these different subjects, and I think that that's super exciting.
Awesome.
So I posted. Go ahead.
No, I really feel that role playing, whether it's live action or tabletop, has an incredible opportunity for kids, especially when you've got someone with some wisdom and experience leading it. And so when an adult teacher is leading for a group of kids, you can really, be coaching them in a very non-threatening way, and creating all these different learning opportunities for them to learn the kinds of skills that are really tough to learn as a kid and a teen, and that normally you don't learn very well in school. Like, how do we stand up for ourselves and communicate and negotiate win-wins? How do we make decisions and deal with the consequences? And of course, ethical dilemmas. All of that comes into play with role playing. And I know, I resonate with what you said, that it was an integral part of your youth, Zach, and it was for me too. I think it kind of was a lifesaver for me in
Totally.
high school to find it. And it was an outlet for me when I was pretty depressed and introverted and insecure. And all of a sudden, D&D became this incredible world to express myself in, and to really express my creativity and intellect and collaboration with my friends. So I'm excited for anything that's going to help bring it out and make it a little bit more accessible to kids and teachers and whatnot.
Nice. Thank you so much. I'm gonna also bring in Peter Joan. He's just arriving, and I'm gonna repost in the chat a kind of way for us to check in with each other. And here comes Peter. But have a look in your chat. I'm gonna have you do a check-in with us, Mark. Do you see that there?
Oh, a chat. Yeah. Oh, I see.
I'm just gonna.
Thank you.
Hi, Peter. Welcome.
Hi,
How's it going?
not too bad.
I'm gonna direct you to the chat just the little chat thing where we're going for a check-in, so we get to know a little bit about you as you come into the zone.
Yeah, sure.
We'll have Mark. Mark, you ready? Go for it.
What am I saying? Oh, am I answering those
Yeah, just
questions
answer
out
that.
loud?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it was like a chat thing. All right. Hi, Peter. Okay, so my name's Mark Hoge. I'm feeling a little vulnerable, a little sad. It's also just a delight to sit down and see you all and realize, wow, we get to talk about the significance of role-playing games, and the opportunity of role-playing games. But yeah, dear friend of mine passed away, and I was just at his memorial. I came home immediately afterwards and logged in. So he's this big-hearted, amazingly loving man that back some years ago I hosted a barefoot boogie every week where it was a barefoot dance, and I did that for a number of years. And Michael was just this fearless, no shyness. He just would welcome everybody, dance with everybody, and just super playful and heartful. So it was lovely to see a lot of people who I used to dance with, and recognize that I've gotten a little out of touch, and it's been a while since I've danced with them, and just saying goodbye to Michael and wondering about the rest of the circle of friends who most of them are in their 50s, 60s, 70s. Oh, sorry, 2 words to describe your emotional state. A little vulnerable and a little sad. Something you're grateful for your childhood. Well, I am grateful that I got turned on to D&D in my youth, and it really, like I was saying earlier, it really helped me and was a outlet and inspiration for creative expression and creativity and connection. Name one of your favorite characters from a story and 3 inner qualities you admire in them. Wow. Well, I'll say Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings. Loyalty and just perseverance, such a devotion, pure heart, and yeah, devotion and loyalty to friend and to the mission, so to speak. There we go.
Nice, thank you. I love this question because it really says so much. Peter, will you go for a check-in with us?
Sure. I'm Peter Young. Emotional state, whatever the emotional state is when you just drop $200 on D&D books. That's a very unique emotional state, and probably encapsulates multiple emotions at the same time. So I'm just going to say I just dropped $200 on D&D books, and I'm very, very, very fine with that. Something I'm grateful for my childhood. Having a D&D group. Just kind of, I've the place I dropped $200 for the books was my childhood DM's game store that he just opened. So I wanted to, go spend a lot of money there. So, and then it's funny you should be mentioning Sam, because I actually have Boromir. He is heroic. He expresses kindness, even in the face of everything. And even though he is corrupted by the ring, because he is human, and that is the fate of man. He eventually comes out of it, and is able to resist it, or at least come to terms with it at the very end of things. And that whole kind of thing is Boromir's path is just beautiful.
Lovely. Well, great. Maybe we'll have you continue, Peter, and just tell us a little bit about your experience or experiences as a teacher gamer, or are you more of an RPG trainer? Where's your?
I wear a million hats. So I'm actually kind of a big applied RPG guy. So I've been in the applied RPG scene for about 7 or 8 years. That includes school groups, therapeutic groups, social skills groups, theater groups, subject matter groups, foster care groups. And so I have been just all over the place, using RPGs in a really applied sense. I work for a crisis mental health agency during the day, and my main kind of focus is I run autism social skills groups, but I've done a lot of work also kind of in developing and helping test, I think it was called Deep Blue, which was a Foundry 10 produced marine biology RPG. And so that was pretty cool. And I'm also the curriculum writer for a video game called Ava that is used for teaching social emotional learning skills to autistic kids in either a classroom or a therapeutic context. So I'm writing their curriculum, and I also released a free RPG that I developed myself, where based on where the kids create the space pirate character, but it is autistic, and it's meant to be played by autistic kids. And part of the character creation involves their coping mechanisms and their triggers. And so when they're faced with something that might be triggering for them, how well they're able to either communicate their needs or use coping strategies. They get like extra dice to meet a challenge. So there's kind of a cool mechanical thing where it's like, hey, if you remember to, put on your noise canceling headphones at this super busy market, you get an extra dice to be able to interrogate this greedy merchant or whatever.
Okay. Coping strategies. So it awards coping strategies, so to speak. That's very cool. I like it. Wow. So
Peter, where can I find your game?
Let me find it.
Because I do some work at Temple Grandin School in Boulder, Colorado, and that's primarily for people on the spectrum. And I know one of the teachers in there leads role-playing games, so I'd love to connect them with this and check it out.
Make sure that this is the right thing. Here we go.
What city are you in?
Tacoma.
Maryland.
No. Yeah, it's by Seattle.
Yo.
So like Washington.
SeaTac.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I just want to go through. So already Aaron and I shared, and his character that he brought up was Spider Jerusalem. And I'll let him describe that a little bit. And mine was Matt Cawthon from the Wheel of Time. And we've heard you guys, Samwise Gamgee and Boromir. I'd love for everybody. Oh, go ahead.
No, if shaving my head were not just a process of absolute pain, I would have cosplayed Spider a couple of years ago, because he is my hero.
I did it for Comic-Con and a LARP, and someone took a picture and sent it to Warren Ellis, and he posted it on his Twitter feed, like, sorry, this is my fault. And there was a picture of me as Spider Jerusalem at Comic-Con.
Were you the one that was handing out drugs? Oh man,
No, maybe I should have been.
Yeah, there was a Spider Jerusalem who, whenever you took a picture with him, he would give you drugs, which were Tic Tacs.
Oh yeah, no, that wasn't me. I have pictures, but whatever. Yeah, this was many years ago. Back when Comic-Con was in person. But yeah, I shaved my head to be Spider Jerusalem for a LARP, and then I did it again to cosplay at Comic-Con.
Awesome.
Nice.
So my question for everybody, just to go with this, is that I feel like there's flaws in all these characters, or as Peter said, there's this human aspect, and I was wondering if you could speak to that as we attempt to work with kids or people in general around learning, around cognitive development. How do RPGs help or shine light on, not just for the science, but for the individual, that sense of it's okay to be flawed? And how do heroes help us with that, like the ones we mentioned, but also, and you could talk to that, but also as we create characters, because I find a lot of times that kids, they want to create really strong people. They don't tend to build flawed characters until they played for a while, but that's not always the case. Anybody want to jump in on that?
Well, just in a small way, I find when I'm working with kids in my LARP, yes, they don't necessarily want to focus on flaws, even though in our game system there is certain advantages you can get if you take flaws like phobias and things like that. Frail body, heavy body, but I think what is most intriguing to me is that they get to interact with me playing the NPCs who have flaws, and through that be encountering some level of humility, humbleness, vulnerability, and it brings out their generosity. So even if they're playing the barbarian warrior who's really rough and tough, it invites their heart and generosity to be dealing with NPCs that have vulnerabilities and frailties and needs. And so they learn about it in that way.
Go for it. Thanks, Mark.
Now that I would love to pick your brain, Mark, about just how you use LARPing at some point, because that's something I'm kind of interested in once COVID sort of wraps up. But as far as the flawed thing, the primary thing that I've been working on lately, and I've been doing this for about 7 years, is a social skills group for autistic kids that has a high degree of longevity. Kids will stay in the group for multiple years. And I kind of joke that once they graduate, I hire them, which has actually happened. So I have kind of the first, second generation applied DM. But what that has resulted in is a lot of the more seasoned kids wanting to create very flawed characters because it's fun. So you make the flaws really fun by creating a safe environment where they are allowed to be flawed. Because if you're setting up an RPG where it's like, okay, you're going to be doing all the violence, all that matters is being a strong person. Whereas a big part of my games is, I played Undertale and thought this game blew my mind. Let's make a non-violent game. So, now a lot of my games are like group interviews or suing the bad guy, which is a lot more fun than killing the bad guy because then you get to see him living in squalor. And putting on a WWE like pro wrestling thing. And so when the stakes are no longer, you must be strong or you will die, it's, you can be strong or you can be kind of goofy, and the worst thing that's going to happen is your court case might not go so well. The consequences for failure are no longer death. And I find that the kids are a lot more willing to be flawed and embody a lot of their own flaws as a way of kind of working through it, or trying on different personas which have their own flaws as a form of like identity processing. So it just comes down to creating a safe space for being a flawed person.
I'm not exactly sure if I could do a better answer than either of Mark or Peter's. I definitely agree with Peter in creating a safe space for them. And I ascribe to the head of Østerskov Efterskole, which is an all LARP school in Denmark, says that something to the effect of the mask of role playing allows the character to fail without consequence, or you don't have consequences, your character does. So you have an alibi, you have the ability to make these mistakes and learn from them in a safe, protected space, a make-believe space, so that you don't have your actual consequences to it. And so that's one. I'm running a science-based LARP right now at the homeschool, where I basically had two sets of goals. The stuff you have to do as a player, so that's like assessment, write an essay about the scientific topic, but then you have character goals. And I told them, flat out, you can absolutely fail at these character goals, and that has nothing to do with it. It's not graded. We're a homeschool, so we're not grading, but I'm more interested in what they're writing as a person and that they're learning, but that they have the freedom to experiment and to play, specifically to play with the possibility of what a flaw is. And in this case, the LARP that I'm doing is some of them believe in false theories, scientific theories. It's called the Great Flagestan Debate. It takes place just before the French Revolution in France, where Antoine Lavoisier and his wife Marie hold a garden party. This is true. These are real historical figures. And they debate scientific theories. And one of the theories was phlogiston, which is an element that they believed burned. A lot of scientists believe there was an element called phlogiston that caused combustion. Before they didn't realize it. And they very firmly believed in this. So it's about scientific theory and science and truth and things like that. So the flaws, such as they are, is that there's characters who believe that they are right because of their position, their authority, or that they've done this experiment and then, oh, that's right, I'm smart and this is right. And so I'm hoping we'll find out, in the next couple of classes, how these kids deal with these characters that have flaws. And the next thing that I think of, and I haven't really thought about until sort of mentioned, is that I firmly believe that a lot of people's greatest strengths are their greatest weaknesses. So that it's very difficult for me to look at any quality of a human and call it flat out a flaw in all conditions and all times. I think that everyone, has great strengths and flaws, and just depends on what the context is within it. So that you could say someone is very self-centered, but in some instances and to certain degrees, that's very helpful for someone. and can be very useful for them. So I think it's interested in just learning within a context, and this goes along with a safe space. In what context could what could be a flaw actually be a strength? What context could a strength actually be a flaw in certain instances, stuff like that. So that's what role playing is, being able to juggle these different contexts to see how a certain condition, or quality of a person can be affected by the context and can actually be helpful or useful to something.
Wow. I love all these responses. These are amazing. And I'm really happy for any listener getting to hear these different takes on it. I'll just quickly say that I think that, the ability to process risk and what that is, the ability to use, using the mask of the character to try different things, especially for identity, to not be outed about something. I think that's a big thing for me with teenagers, is that they want to be able to explore things or try things or say things, nasty things, nice things, all sorts of different things, and they can say it through their character, and it's not about them. I think this is just such a wonderful tool that's playful. And I want to just move into that idea also, is that there's role-playing games for me is an opportunity to do implicit learning instead of explicit learning. So you have all these SEL programs, social and emotional learning programs. You also have these PBLs, these project-based learning. You have all these these opportunities to do learning. But I feel like using role-playing games is this opportunity to be teaching and learning about things without talking explicitly about what you're doing, but just saying to kids, hey, do you want to play a game? And they say, yeah. And then you say, okay. And here, you start taking them down a road, whichever road that might be. And it's not, okay, we're going to work on collaboration today. This is the one that just makes me smack my forehead every time. And speaking of strategies, I was wanting to ask you guys, because I feel like we have some LARP specialists here. How do you feel like for a tabletop role-playing game teacher or person who's really at the tabletop, what are some strategies to move into LARPing or making the experience more live and moving away from the character sheets and all the kind of tools at the table, and move more into embodying their characters? Anybody like to jump in on that one?
Mark, do you mind if I grab it? Because I'm going to have to
No,
head out.
I was just going to point it to you because I know you've got to leave.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, guys. I got to feed the cat and do my chores and stuff. So I've done hybrid tabletop LARP settings and situations. And so the way I love combining my LARP experience with tabletop. So I've been doing that for years and years and years. And I basically just start very simply with like props, just like bringing in props for things. So if there's a map and here's the map of the village, or, give them an app, try and print out, on a scroll, a map, or, so all you have is the tactile moment of it. Then you can start bringing in like sound effects, lighting, so you're kind of creating the environment, but they're still sitting over the character sheets and stuff like that. So you're easing them into it, and then suggest maybe there's costumes, and costume be as simple as a hat, so that you as the game master put on different hats or something for the NPC when you're playing an NPC, different hats. And you start maybe, if you can, like different speech patterns. I don't necessarily want to say accents, but speech patterns, your verbiage, the language you're using to represent the different characters. So you get used to using your voice as a character. And so, which a lot of game masters are doing already. So to me, really the difference between, say, a tabletop and LARPing is just, in LARPing, you just stand up from the table. And so I think an easy one, once you've kind of got these little props in, and then, you got hats, and you're doing that, voices, you got some lighting and some props, stand up from the table. And then you could just kind of sort of role play one scene, maybe just one scene, maybe just a bargaining, you're at the merchant, you're trying to sell the loot that you got, and you need some healing potions or something, and so take the dice, just put it aside to it, and you can role play it out. If you feel that for some of the kids who are shy on that, you have the system there to cushion them. So if they feel very uncomfortable with actually talking to a person and representing their stuff, and like, I don't really want to talk to them, or you're finding that, then we can always just go to the dice, right? We can always just say, okay, just roll your bargain skill or whatever, and we'll see what happens. But I think it's an easing in of LARP techniques of props, music, lighting, costuming, and then you start role playing the characters a little bit more and encouraging them to do more. And I found that another way early in games that I played was that a GM who really encouraged role playing, talking and acting in the character, would say, if you can role play this on me, you have a much better chance of success. If you just want to roll it, you can, but then we just kind of go by the rules. So the encouragement is, if you can actually talk to the person, you get, let's say, a bonus, or you'll succeed automatically or something like that. So you kind of, not that you can still roll the dice, you still might succeed, but your chance of success increases once the dice are on the side, if that makes sense. So you're just kind of getting the dice out of it. But other than that, what a role-playing game, I think, is the same.
Nice.
Hope that helps.
But that totally helps. I mean, that's, again, there might be people tuning in and listening to this. And I always try to think in that perspective is, there are people who want to jump into this and they're like, how do I do it? And some people are more, they'll just jump in and go for it and improvise. And there's other people who really won't take the steps until they have all the strategies and tools. So anything that we share, obviously, is part of the wealth and acquiring of knowledge that we're passing on here. So really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Aaron, and you got to go. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, thanks so much. This was awesome. Zach,
you.
for doing this. Thank you so much, and having me in the group, and hopefully there'll be more.
Yeah.
I thought this was great. And Mark and Peter, it was great seeing you. Mark, actually, at least face to face, if not flesh and flesh. So something. So say, give a hi to Aaron for me.
And can I ask
I will.
Can I ask you, Aaron, before you leave, one of the things that one of the formal things I wanted to ask people was, there's this concept of the teacher gamer revolution. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I've been really trying to, again, bring this more into the schools, as we talked about, not just after schools programs, not just camps. And I was just wondering from everybody, is there anything that we could, I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm actually kind of looking for pledges if you want to make them. And one of the ones that I want to tell you guys, I'm wondering if you feel that this experience is valuable, if I pledged to put on a chat like this once a month, I don't know what it is, the first Sunday of every month or whatever, is that the kind of thing that you might come to? Just meeting teacher gamers online once a month or once every 2 months? What are your thoughts about that? Because this is a kind of pledge that I personally want to make, and I'm wondering and before you go, Aaron, if you have a pledge.
Yeah, I was going to answer, and then I'd love to meet and chat. I was hoping to ask a question on the class after on Monday on how I can, if you guys can help me give an idea on how I can run an experiment without lab for all these science. What I'm trying to do in the lesson is whatever. I won't go over it because I got to run, but I would love to have an opportunity that we could just bounce ideas off and best practices and what worked, what didn't work. Right. I'd love to tell you guys like LARPs that failed and why I failed and how and why. So
Awesome.
If you're not making mistakes I made. So yes. And to make a short answer very long, yes, I'd be very interested in a monthly or bi-monthly meeting of teacher gamers.
Nice.
So yes, I would. Thank you guys. I'm off. Have a great rest of weekend, and guys, keep chatting. It's good to see you all. And
Super.
Game on. See you guys.
Thanks, Aaron.
Bye.
Thanks, Aaron.
Bye.
Bye.
I'd probably be down for that. It just depends on what day of the week and timing. But I think it would be fun and great to network with people. Absolutely.
Great.
I'm always down to network. Time is like not something I have a lot of, but it's kind of one of those things where like, hey, if I'm around, I'm around, and I've
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's more. It's also just like if it's valuable. I don't want to create something. I mean, you guys have probably experienced that where you try to generate something in the community, and if people find it's valuable, it's like they'll come, they'll do it, and especially if it's at a good time, versus yeah, okay, maybe I would sort of do that, and then it's here or there something happens. It's interesting how what kind of zeitgeist. I don't know if there's a zeitgeist in this, and if you guys wouldn't mind giving me your impressions of this concept of a teacher gamer revolution. I mean, I don't know what else to call it, and that's kind of where I went with it, and I put it on 100, and it became shortlisted as one of the 300 most important global innovations for education. But I don't think it's going to make the 100, but it did get shortlisted from 3,000 to 300, and that's kind of cool. And next year maybe it'll go further, but I also don't want it to be just mine. It's not about me. It's about like a concept, and I'm trying to like offload it or get people to help me carry it or whatever.
So, are you talking with Zack Hartzman and Maryanne Cullinan?
Are they people at 100?
No, they are people who are rocking. So, I am not just like a teacher gamer. I'm more in the applied gaming space. So my whole thing is gaming is useful across a lot of contexts.
Sure.
I kind of came into it through a therapeutic pathway, but I've done gaming in the classroom. I've done educational games. I've done curriculum design. So I wear all those hats. But the two people that I think are doing some of the most impressive kind of RPG teaching work right now are Zack Hartzman and Maryanne Cullinan. And I can actually give you their Twitters.
Awesome.
And Maryanne is just, she's fantastic. She's actually got a 60-something girls playing D&D.
Wow.
Yeah, she is.
That's awesome.
And on top of this, she's working on her doctorate in educational gaming.
Nice.
Yeah. Maryanne.
How do you spell her last name?
Cullinan. I'm always misspelling it, but let me see if she has it. She does not have it publicly, but let's see if it's on her website. What's cooking? Cullinan. But yeah, that's like I am kind of all over Twitter as far as the applied gaming space. Maryanne is actually a very good friend of mine. Zack, I've talked with him a few times. Zack's a pretty interesting guy. He's doing a lot of stuff as far as training teachers how to use RPGs and doing that. Maryanne is doing some fantastic stuff and just how to run games with specifically middle schoolers, and the work she's doing on her doctorate should be very interesting when she's starts publishing. But the fact that she's working on her doctorate and teaching full-time and raising 3 kids and raising like 6 cats, 4 of which are kittens. I don't think she ever sleeps.
When you have the energy, go for it, right?
Yeah, no, but yeah, I cannot, you want to talk about a teacher gamer revolution. Those two people are big on it. And definitely Maryanne and I have had long conversations about where kind of the educational thing is going, because she's really interested in kind of the education side of things, and really starting to ask some questions around, what are the benefits of running games in schools? Because my intuition is that the subject matter stuff is kind of shaky. But that, at least that was my experience with the Deep Blue RPG, because I don't think, like, as far as teaching marine biology, it's a very kind of experiential thing. Like, oh, you see this sort of octopus. Well, now the kids know that there's this type of octopus, but it's not as dense a thing as, perhaps, direct instruction about the thing. However, as far as building interest in the subject, by the end of it, all the kids were really interested in marine biology. So I think there is that value. I think there is tremendous social benefit, just as far as building community. But that's the direction Maryanne's going. My current direction is looking more towards community-based gaming, like gaming at homeless shelters, gaming at youth, queer youth centers, looking at specifically at-risk youth populations. So that's kind of what's really interesting me right now. But highly recommend you talk with those two people.
Great, thank you for that. I definitely would love your introduction if you want to make one. And
are you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter. I'm under at Teacher-Gamer Z.
Oh yeah, I think we're following each other. I'm Roll for Kindness.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Yes, and yes. I want to really quickly. I just followed them. Thank you for posting their Twitter connection, and
yep. I just plugged Maryanne, or you to Maryanne. I don't know Zack well enough to do the introduction. Like, I've talked with him a few times, but go ahead and reach out to him and just say, hey, Roll for Kindness said you were amazing. Just wanted to introduce myself.
That sounds great.
And yeah, he'll know who I am.
What did I want to say? Mark, are you doing Twitter? Are you a Twitter person? You're on mute right now. You're on mute.
I don't think I am. I mean, I think I have an account, but I don't think I'm actually doing the Twitter thing. I'm looking for my account name right now and failing.
It's all good. It's funny because I didn't, I think I was on Twitter with, 4 followers or whatever, and then started doing this thing with the Teacher-Gamer. And actually, I felt like Teacher-Gamer actually gave me a reason to be on Twitter, when before it was like, I'm, way out there. Even now, I still sort of feel funky about it. Twitter seems like a thing to be, it has to be really relevant. And I feel like it's gaining in relevance. And again, with the Teacher-Gamer revolution, things that are more like about a thing and not so much about me feels more important to me. And I think that's what's started to generate some energy around it. But what I really wanted to talk about was this point that you brought, Peter, about how relevant is driving subject matter in RPGs. And I don't know that it is actually. I'd like to say that, I'm not about saying that for the record, but it's more about saying that I think RPGs as a class itself, come and play games, come do something really robust. This is definitely a social emotional opportunity. It's definitely something for identity processing. It's definitely for taking risk, collaboration, and a whole slew of skills, which I went into with the Teacher-Gamer Handbook, 36 different skills. And by the way, I never really set out particularly I actually kind of back generated the skill list. I actually played and taught the class and knew that there was many skills I was using. It wasn't until I sat down to write the book that I realized these are all the skills that I'm teaching, which is a really interesting thing, because usually we kind of, have these goals either in a community or in education, and then we kind of build something to make it happen. And so that's been an interesting thing. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, so what you're it's really tricky. So I've been teaching social skills really effectively for 7 years. Like, absolutely can attest, D&D can teach social skills. It can happen. And these are skills that are behaviorally like reinforced through the game. Like, you have to role play. You have to be able to work as a team and be assertive and communicate what you need to do. Otherwise, the party will get killed or whatever. So this, I think so much of the discussion around how people learn with D&D is based around the RPG itself. And like, imagine if you were trying to teach math using the tools you use to teach history. You would just be going around all these events, and when people discovered, like, and this is when they discovered calculus, and this is when they discovered geometry and Pythagoras. Would kids learn math? No, they wouldn't. Versus if you're trying to teach history in the same way that you teach math, where you're just drilling people on, dates and events, and just like, okay, so, Copernicus plus, this event equals this, Nero and Rome equals burning. Would kids learn it? Probably not. So I think the biggest problem, and this is what I experienced with the marine science RPG, was the people who were designing it, they were trying to do D&D light. I was kind of their consultant testing person. So I had very little to do with the design process. And in retrospect, I think that they kind of screwed it up because they were focusing specifically on a D&D sort of model that's very experiential. Whereas, say, like, if I were to be looking at teaching Spanish, I would not do a traditional D&D dungeon crawl because that would not be a very effective way to use it. Instead, I would say, okay, your party starts in the human lands, but as they're traveling to the elven lands, all the elves speak Spanish. So we're going to start with you going to an elven inn, and to be able to figure out what room you're going to be staying in, you're going to need to ask them in Spanish. And then there's a few elven drunks at the bar, and they're getting offended by you. So to avoid a fight, you're going to have to kind of talk them down in Spanish, and they're throwing a bunch of insults in Spanish at them. So of course the players are going to be like, "Ooh, I'm going to remember that one," and so you are creating this really tailored experience. And so I think no one is really doing this the right way in the teaching space. I see a lot of teachers who are doing amazing work in the SEL space. I have yet to see anyone who is doing really good curriculum RPG design.
Mark, you want to jump in on that? I definitely have some comments.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a very challenging thing. I can visualize history being taught through LARP very well. Certain situations in history, acting it out, giving people different motivations to create negotiations, etc.
The one guy, actually, Maryanne taught mythology through LARP.
Nice.
She did a thing where they were all like the Greek gods, and that was actually how she started RPGs. So yeah, ask her about that. But the other really good example of history being taught through RPGs was from a non-teacher who wanted to do a historically accurate Roman game. And so, he was this huge, like, Roman history buff. And he was telling me, like, part of the game is, back in Roman times, there was a market day. You couldn't just go to a store and buy something. You had to wait till market day when all the markets were open and go and buy something then. So, if it's a Tuesday and your character wants a sword, well, he's going to have to wait till Sunday because that's the market day. And he can spend all day looking for a blacksmith that might be willing to sell him one, but that's going to be an entire day of looking. And so I thought, like, that's a really interesting way to teach that concept. So yeah, I think history could be really interesting. And I think there's enough precedent with it, with sort of like mock UNs. The history teachers, they'll do like a mock UN around World War II, and stuff like that. I think that's pretty much, historical LARPing anyways.
Well, there's
Yeah.
some other, I know that there's some science LARPing going on with, especially around sustainability and taking different roles, or having a community that's inundated with some kind of pollution, or another one is kind of going on another planet and kind of building sort of these biospheres where you could live, and then you'd have different responsibilities, and that become really science related. But again, depending upon how old the kids are. What I've found is having the RPGs is its own class, and having the opportunity to work with kids socially, emotionally, but also through kind of maker space, using your hands, kinesthetics, foam sword battles, and kind of going between all these different things, and also using presentations and making big profiles or big biographies or biogeographies about the characters. It's just, you can fill a lot there. But what I have found is, as a subject teacher that teaches games and teaches a subject, that when I go back to my subject teaching, and I've already played games, this is one of the critical things for me about the Teacher-Gamer Handbook and about the whole concept of being a teacher gamer that's not just teaching RPGs, is that the openness, and I think other teachers also have this experience who teach multiple subjects, like an art teacher who also teaches, I don't know, history or Spanish, or a PE teacher, or a theater teacher who also teaches, biology or history or whatever, that once they've played with the child in one context, when they go to the other context, they have multiple levels of relationship. And the key for me is that, and that same thing with co-teaching as well, is that once we've played together, then when we go back to actually subject, the students are much more ready to share with me their difficulties or what's challenging them, and that we can address that together, and if we've already been co-creating, co-developing, or looking at challenges, puzzles, and confusion or difficulties in the gaming realm, that when we go back into the regular world, they're much more, I'm looking for this word right now. Wow. Why do I keep thinking wherewithal? No, that they're much more ready to show up with and contribute in the class. And I think because there's so much failure that happens in role-playing games, that they're actually willing to say, hey, I just don't understand this, or I just don't get this literary device, or I don't understand why would Romeo do that, and say that, with the Capulets, or, they'll just come out with things where before that person might've been more introverted. They've already been going through all these experiences through the RPGs class where they've gone through so many things that they're ready to share, contribute, admit they don't understand something, show that they're confused, and kind of get on with it. Like, let's get on with I want to learn this stuff and I want to get through it. And that the sense of challenge and risk taking on a personal level, I find, goes up. I really want to do and get involved in some university programs that can actually measure this, because once that can be shown to be measurable or measured, that's fantastic. But that's a kind of more complex thing, right? That means that it's a subject teacher who's teaching RPGs and teaching a subject, and what happens between those things, positively or negatively.
So I need to go because hot food just arrived, but reach out to Maryanne, and I already said that you'll be reach out, or that she should reach out to you. But
Super.
I believe that is going to be a big part of what she's working on.
Super.
Anyways, it was an absolute pleasure to meet all of you, and I would love to pick your brains more about LARPing, because that is a space that I would like to get into eventually.
Yeah, Peter, I put my contact info down there. I've been doing LARP with kids and teens for 30 years, so I'm happy to talk with you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
sure. All right.
Thanks, Peter.
Adios.
Take care.
Bye.
Hey, Mark.
Yes, Zach.
So glad that we got to take this opportunity. This is really, really cool. And
Yeah.
And all to our friend Bonzi, right?
Yes, good Bonzi. He's awesome. Good collaborator and connector. I love hearing that, they basically gave you your own class for role playing and gave you the freedom to do what you wanted with that, arts, writing, etc. That is perfect, and that makes a lot more sense in my mind. I wasn't sure. I thought maybe you were doing, science and math and this and that, but I know you are to certain degrees.
I'm lost you, or what's happening? Stay with me, Mark. Oh, I hear you.
Oh, I hear you now. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
I have poor internet up in the mountains here in Colorado.
I think we're back on. Yeah, I think we're fine. Sorry. Can
Cool.
you just say that again? Or
I was just saying that it's great that your school gave you the freedom to have your own role-playing class and be able to bring in whatever elements you wanted with that. That's awesome. It's amazing.
Yeah. It really was. And again, it was, I think it was a frustration that just said, do whatever, and we trust you to go for it. I think that's an amazing opportunity, and that's kind of the thing that happens in life sometimes, where opportunities emerge when that's an example of things going maybe wrong or difficult, and then suddenly there's an opportunity to jump in and take advantage of the opportunity. And I was there for that. And I think that, yeah, that goes the same thing as one thing I'd want to say to any teachers or teacher gamers listening and who have perhaps an opportunity like that, is to not try to do too much, or try to overdo it, or try to promise too much. I think one of the key elements is to really set your goal to something possible. And one of the main things for me is to be able to say to kids, do you want to play a game? Do you want to go for this? Let's try. And yeah, let's play, and get them into the play space is so important. You still with me, Mark?
I am. I turned my video off because my internet's acting up, and I
Okay.
think I'd have more bandwidth without the video.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. I think kids learn a lot if they can just relax into the play mode, play space.
Yeah.
And do you know the Sudbury school model?
I've heard of it, but I feel like I would love to know more.
Well, just super briefly, Sudbury Valley School is a school where, and they have a lot of different schools around the world, I believe, where the kids are invited and encouraged to do what inspires them. So there are no set classes in that school unless the kids tell the teachers, hey, I really want to learn this. And so the main theme is, if you're really inspired by something, you're going to learn from it, even if it's just reading fantasy novels or playing D&D. So on the one hand, D&D is fun, or role-playing games are fun. And so kids are playing and they are going to be learning because they're having fun engaging with each other. And on the other hand, I'm convinced that role-playing games are one of the best teaching tools for learning a lot of important skills. So it's a win-win in both ways there.
Nice. And I'll just say that it's yeah, what can I say? Yeah, I'm gushing at that. I mean, it is an amazing opportunity when I think administrators realize the opportunity there is for kids to get engaged, and especially I think there's a great opportunity at the beginning of any new school year, or I guess at the beginning of any new term, there's an opportunity for the school to try something new. Trying to bring role-playing games into the middle of something, or trying to plug it into a subject suddenly. You know, what is really nice is when it comes organized, and there's also a dedication. I think it's something that students can learn with a teacher. I know that happens sometimes, but having an actual guide of somebody who knows how to play them, and that also, again, puts into focus how important it is for people who have dedicated themselves to gaming and who have a background in it, but also who've dedicated themselves into a life of pedagogy or teaching and learning and understanding cognitive development and learning development. These are such, that kind of merge of the teacher and the gamer is such a special thing, but I think it's happening more and more. And just to go into a little bit more of your background, so you're doing more kind of after school and camp, or are you able to do things in school as well?
Mostly what Renaissance Adventures does is summer camps. That's been our big business. And I started Renaissance Adventures in 1995, but for 5 summers before that, I was experimenting with LARPing with kids while I was directing a creative arts camp on the East Coast for this nonprofit arts foundation. But summer camps are our big business. We do after school programs. It's very rare that we do something in school. So mostly it's after school, holiday camps whenever schools are on holiday. So we are not in a curriculum of a school, but we've got a bunch of private schools that really appreciate our work. The kids love us, the families love us. We get rave reviews, so we've got a lot of kids who just come back over and over because they're getting so much out of it.
What do you think, and do you hear tales of and testimonies of kids go to your camp, then they go to school, and what are they able to carry? Have you heard of, is there a legacy of things that they bring into school with them that they've learned in camp?
We certainly get testimonials from our parents around confidence and self-expression. Occasionally adults who were kids at our camp, will reach out to us, or, I'll bump into them on the street and they'll be like, man, I learned so much from doing that program, and thank you so much. I'm much more empowered in who I am because of that experience. So we get kids on the spectrum, we get kids, all kinds of kids, and a lot of parents letting us know how much their kids do an after school. We'll often hear from the parents. This is at our after school programs, we hear from parents that the time of the week their kid is looking forward to all week long is that little 1.5 hour after school class every week.
Oh, wow.
So it's impactful for the kids. It's super fun. And if kids are having fun, they're going to be learning a lot. If you've got a mature teacher, someone with a lot of experience with
someone with a lot of experience, and then it cut off.
A lot of experience with children leading that game. And I apologize. I hope it's not my internet, but it might be my internet. It
might be my internet too. I've gotten a couple messages that it says it's unstable. I'm so glad that
Okay.
for the most part it has been stable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's internet's funny that way. Gosh, well, what can I say? I thank goodness for the internet that allows us to have this conversation, and at the same time, it definitely has its frustration elements.
Yeah.
But
You know,
yeah,
one thing about D&D, we do lead D&D programs as well. We had a school ask us to because they had so many kids into D&D, and it was a school that we were doing our Adventure Quest LARP at. And so for the last maybe 4 years, we do some D&D programs. Um, and I don't think D&D fifth edition is really the optimal game system for a school environment with kids and non-gamers. And I think it can easily lend itself to a lot of complex rules and complexity, where really the focus should be on the story, on the narrative, on the character building, on the role playing, and the plot. So I'm all for a much simpler game system for a school environment.
it's really interesting that you say that. So I don't do fifth edition. I do 3.5 edition. And how well versed are you on all the editions? Do you know
I've
them all?
played all of them. I started with the box, edition one back in the late, mid '70s. So yeah, 3.5. I guess in my ideal perspective, something about 1/10 as complex as 3.5 would be optimal. But to each their own. You've got to play what inspires you, and I just want the kids to be focused on the narrative more than uh, what prestige classes they're going to learn, and their powers and the dice rolls and stuff.
So that's really interesting. So to give you some perspective, for me, I think when I played the most as a kid, yeah, I played the original box. Then there was the intermediate, I think, right, and then there was the advanced, and then there was second edition, and that's when we started getting the books that we kind of that became the classic size books. Then third edition came, and fourth edition was just awful, and then fifth edition, and something about the fifth edition was trying to take the best of the third edition, and the fourth edition felt to me to be something like what's it called, what's that, there was I'm trying to come up with the name of this thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The main thing for me was that when I taught this, it was me setting out to figure out how will I teach this very complex game, but keep the narrative front and center. And actually, one of the methods I use is what I call book closed. It doesn't even matter, what subject it is, but just starting with the book closed and engaging with them into who their characters are. I mean, we pretty much start with a notebook and we write everything down, and I don't even introduce the books until at least the kind of fifth or sixth hour of character building. And the main thing for me about using 3.5 edition actually is that it is super complex. And so I'm kind of riding this rail between getting the kids to play something that's really narrative based and fun, and also the parents going, oh my gosh, you're working with 300-page books, and you're helping them learn how to navigate those books, and this thing is so complex, and the kids come home and talk about things that are really, really complex, and that's what's so exciting, I think, for the parents. So again, I didn't necessarily set out to do it this way, but the 10-hour character build is something that, especially somebody who's never played before. And I tell the parents about the 10-hour character build. I tell the administration about the 10-hour character build, but I don't tell the kids about the 10-hour character build. And when they say, when are we going to play? I'm always like, we're already playing from the moment that you walked in here. We're playing, and they kind of get they get that and they start to understand that. And the beauty of the complexity is, and we talk about that too, is guys, if you go to play any role-playing game, there you already have the tools to step into any situation. And there's going to be things that are a bit more complex than this, but for the most part, there's going to be things that are less complex than this. And I think it's about, again, it's about how it's handled. I think somebody stepping up for the first time and trying to, teach kids role-playing games, or, to learn as they go along. I think we need strategies from a person like you, who's probably taking things a lot. I'm just going to say that simply is how, how do you engage with kids, and how do you determine what complexity is good for them when you say, for example, that someone would come in at 1/10 the complexity level of 3.5 edition?
Well, I mean, our primary program is our own. We use our own game system called Adventure Quest, and so we are starting simple with that Adventure Quest game system with the kids. Now, it gets more complicated, more options for different thematic powers and paths, secret paths and whatnot, as the kids get older. So we've got kids who sometimes are with us for 5, 8 years, coming to several summer camp weeks in the summer, programs throughout the year. So their characters develop over time. But when they first start with us, they've just got a few basic powers and a really unique race, and that's it. Now, our D&D programs are 5th edition because that's what, when we started doing the D&D, it was because the school, one of our schools just said, hey, we've got a bunch of 5th edition players here. They want some really talented leaders. You guys are masters of the gaming. Can you start leading this? And so since then, we've just been doing 5th edition with them. But again, for new players especially, we start simple with pre-generated characters. They get to choose their path and their race, and we've got pre-generated characters for them, which they can edit and modify. Or if we're doing something online, we're working with D&D Beyond. But in our LARPs, we work with as young as 6. I'd say the majority of ages are 8 to 12, but it's a range of from 6 to 17. Grouped in small groups of 5 or 6 kids by age. So you'll have your 8-year-olds together, or 8 and 9-year-olds. And so, they start really simple, and the Adventure Quest game is designed to be able to work well with kids and to scale up as those kids are ready for adding some complexity.
Nice. Well, this is all, there's so much for all of us to learn from what you're doing, and what, as we could see, just bringing in Aaron and Peter and you and I all coming at this from different directions. Some the Venn diagram crosses, of course, in all of us, I think, and then what the different specializations are and foci into how to bring RPGs into schools. I'm gonna bring it to an end, Mark. This has been 2 hours. Thanks for the time you spent here with me and sharing what you learn. And as I've said before, my kind of pledge to keep things going, I'm really interested in trying to put together maybe something monthly so we can have chats like this, and I hope that they grow in size. But also, I really appreciated even just the 3 of you have a whole world of knowledge and background and experience. What are your thoughts for the future of how we can bring more teacher gamers into the fold?
Yeah, I think once a month or once every 2 months, having a gathering, potentially with certain themes announced ahead of time, that people can think about and bring their views on, or just, show up because they want to hear people's perspectives on those themes. Maybe some way for people to contribute, hey, can we do this theme or variation of this theme? I think that would be great. And it helps, I think it opens my world up, knowing what other people are doing. So, and I think that's really helpful.
Nice.
And
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm looking forward to watching the first half hour of this video, this recording. If you're gonna, wherever you're gonna post it, if you're gonna post it, because I'm curious what Aaron said before I got here, and you as well.
Super. Well, thanks, Mark. Yeah, I will. I have this Teacher Gamer podcast that I'm putting together, I've been recording so many interviews over the last 3 years, and I'm finally going to be putting these up. And this one, where it will be, it'll definitely be YouTube. I'm thinking video wise, I just don't know how boring or amazing that'll look. But and then I will be having the podcast. The podcast is just so close to getting off the ground, and it continues to be the next thing on my list. I got my book out. Now I've got this meetup in front of me out. I just took a job at a place called Empathy School here in Bali. They've given me the autonomy to build their middle school, which I'm doing based on a curriculum I developed with a few partners of mine, Rosina Dorelli out of Cambridge University in the UK. And we've created this thing called Da Vinci Life Skills, kind of trying to hit on the polymath in all of us. And I'll send you that link. I'll put the link here as well for people to check out. But this is this pilot program is just a wonderful opportunity where they're allowing me the autonomy to put RPGs as one of the core center pieces of the curriculum.
That's amazing.
And so we're starting in January. So that's just blowing my mind. And we expect to open a second school here in August. And there's a couple other different pilot projects that are starting up, but it's pretty much PBL, it's project-based and transdisciplinary, so we're trying to figure out many different things and how to skill students up, but using RPGs as one of our actual core pieces of curriculum, which is, I guess, would be your social emotional, but also your makerspace and your DTE, and there's a whole science of sustainability within it, and also art. So, we heard some people talking about STEM programs. We're really looking at the STEAM program, putting the art in the STEM program.
Nice.
So that's where I'm headed with this. And the theme of this meeting was challenges and accomplishments. And there've been a lot of both. And I'm really glad that we got to hear about yours and about Peter and Aaron's as well.
Awesome. Congratulations. That sounds like an amazing opportunity, super challenging and amazing. And I can't wait to hear more about it.
Super. Thanks, Mark. And let us know. And glad to have you also in the Facebook group. Really great place to share and build together.
Cool.